The galaxy was old. It had seen empires rise and fall, stars born and stars die. But one truth had lasted for centuries. Only one true Deathworld existed. And it belonged to the Xorathians. Every race in the galaxy knew the stories. The Xorathian homeworld was a nightmare of fire, storms, and endless predators. To survive there meant to be born in pain and raised in battle. Entire species feared the very name. If the galaxy had an apex predator, it was the Xorathians, or so they believed. Across star systems, the legends always began the same way. No world is harsher than Xorath. No race is deadlier than the Xorathians. For centuries, none dared to argue. None dared to even question. But there were whispers, ancient whispers, buried in forgotten archives, in damaged data vaults left to rust. There was mention of another name, a world long erased, a name spoken only in fragments. Earth. Most dismissed it as a myth. Others claimed it was a translation error, a phantom entry from corrupted data. But the most ancient scholars of the Council remembered. They warned in secret that there had once been another Deathworld, one worse than Xorath, a world that birthed survivors who could not be broken. The Xorathians silenced those whispers. They wanted the galaxy to believe the truth was simple. They alone were the masters of pain. They alone were forged in fire. They alone had conquered the worst. But truth has a way of returning even from the grave. The story began in the Xorathian capital, a city of jagged towers and burning skies. Generals gathered in a vast war hall, a chamber filled with banners from 1,000 conquests. They boasted of victories, of worlds they had crushed, of species that now bent the knee. One elder general, his scales cracked with age, spoke proudly, "Once again, the galaxy bows to us. Once again, we proved that no other world could create warriors like ours." The hall erupted in cheers. But not everyone joined. At the edge of the chamber, a scholar waited nervously. His skin was pale, his hands trembling as he clutched a data slate. He had discovered something he should not have. The general noticed him. "Speak, scholar. Do not waste our time." The scholar swallowed hard. "I bring news from the archives. I believe I have uncovered evidence of another Deathworld." The hall went silent. The general stared in disbelief. The scholar continued, voice shaking. "I found a forgotten record in the Council's old star maps. A system beyond the Orion Arm. A planet catalogued as Class Black 7. Its name was Earth." The generals laughed. Harsh, cruel laughter that echoed across the hall. "Fairy tales," one sneered. "Old lies told by weak species to frighten their young." But the scholar didn't back down. He raised the data slate, showing grainy symbols, half-broken transmissions. "This is no fairy tale. The record was hidden, intentionally erased. Why hide a world unless it was a threat?" That silenced them. The elder general frowned. "What do you mean, erased?" The scholar took a deep breath. "Because perhaps the Xorathians were never the only Deathworlders. That night across the capital, whispers spread like fire. Could it be true? Another Deathworld? Another race that had survived the impossible? The Xorathians had always lived with pride, but now a shadow crept into their minds. If Earth was real, what had become of its people? Were they extinct? Or worse, were they still alive? In the deepest chambers of the War Council, a secret meeting was held. Maps flickered in holograms. Data from the archives was poured over again and again. One point shone faintly in the void. A star system marked, then struck out. The coordinates were damaged but recoverable. The generals argued fiercely. "Send scouts," one demanded. "If this Earth exists, we must crush it before it rises." "No," said another. "If it is dead, let it remain so." Why wake ghosts? But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and pride is even more dangerous. The Xorathians had ruled for too long, carried their arrogance for too many centuries. They would not allow the idea of rivals. The order was given. A fleet would be dispatched to the edge of the Orion Arm. To find this Earth. To prove, once and for all, that only one Deathworld remained. The fleet departed in silence. Massive warships, black against the stars, carrying warriors eager to prove themselves. The galaxy watched closely. Few knew the truth of the mission, But rumors had already spread. In backwater spaceports, merchants whispered to each other. The Xorathians hunt for something. A ghost world. In hidden stations, intelligence guilds pass secret messages. They seek Earth, the lost death world. And in the farthest reaches, where stars burned cold and quiet, something stirred. Something that had waited for millennia. The journey was long. The fleet crossed forgotten sectors, systems untouched for ages. Strange derelicts drifted in the void, wrecks of ships older than any known empire. The Xorathians ignored them, focused only on their goal. Finally, they reached it, a small, unremarkable star. A blue planet spinning quietly in the dark. The fleet commanders sneered. "This is it? This fragile world? This is the fabled Earth?" Sensors scanned the surface. The readings were strange. High levels of oxygen, massive oceans, violent storms, extreme temperature shifts. One officer frowned. "The environment is unstable, almost uninhabitable." The commander laughed. "Then it is as we thought. A dead world, a myth." But then a sound broke the silence, a signal. Weak but clear, "We endure." The fleet froze, the commander snarled. "Where did that come from?" The officer's voice shook. "From the surface, from Earth." Panic spread through the crew. If the world was dead, why was there a signal? If no one lived there, who had sent it? The commander silenced them. "Land a team. We will see these ghosts with our own eyes." Dropships broke from the fleet, plunging into the storm-filled skies. Lightning tore the heavens, waves rose like mountains, and the earth roared as if alive. When the Xorathians landed, they expected ruins, dust, silence. Instead, they found footprints, not ancient, not eroded, fresh. Something was alive here. The soldiers moved carefully, weapons raised. The wind howled, trees bent and cracked. Strange creatures watched them with hungry eyes. But it wasn't the beasts that chilled the soldiers. It was the silence between them. The feeling of being hunted. Hours passed. Then from the shadows of the ruined city, a figure stepped forward. Not alien, not strange. Human, scarred, armored with scraps, eyes burning with something the Xorathians had never seen before. A strength not born of arrogance, but of endless survival. The human smiled, cold, sharp, dangerous. "You thought you were the only Deathworlders." The voice said. The Xorathians froze. The human's eyes narrowed. "Welcome to Earth." The galaxy had believed one truth for centuries. Now, in a single moment, that truth cracked. Because Earth was not dead, humanity was not gone, and the age of the Xorathians, being the only Deathworlders, was over. The galaxy is filled with names. Names of stars, names of worlds, names of empires that once ruled and then vanished into dust. But some names do not vanish. Some names are buried, hidden, erased on purpose. And one of those names was Earth. It began in the great library of the Council, a vault of ancient records stretching back tens of thousands of years. Most believed the archives to be complete. But among damaged crystals and corroded files, a young archivist named Tehran found something strange. At first, it was only a half-broken fragment, a single reference in an old star map. A system marked, then struck out in red. Beside it a word, Irath or Ert. The letters were twisted, degraded by time. Tehran almost ignored it. Many maps had errors, but curiosity gnawed at him. He pulled more records. Again and again the same mark appeared. A system that should not exist. A name repeated but always crossed out. Finally, in a nearly destroyed data crystal, he found the full name. Earth. The word made his scales prickle. He whispered it aloud, and the sound felt heavy, like a secret not meant to be spoken. Tehran took his discovery to the council, expecting praise. Instead, he was met with cold silence. An elder archivist hissed, "Do not speak that name." "But why?" Tehran asked. "What was Earth?" The elder's eyes burned. It was nothing. A dead world, a mistake. Forget it. But the young archivist had seen the fear in the elder's eyes. It was not the fear of lies. It was the fear of truth. Word spread quickly, as secrets often do. Whispers carried through the halls of the council. then across spaceports, then into the ears of the Xorathians. To the warrior race, the whispers were an insult. Another death world? Another species like us? Impossible. They laughed, mocked, and roared with anger, but pride is a dangerous thing. The more they denied Earth's existence, the more the idea grew. What if the legends were true? What if the Xorathians were not alone? A secret meeting was called in the Xorathian War Hall. Generals gathered around a burning map of the stars. The coordinates from the archives were displayed, flickering and unstable but still visible. The fleet commander, General Korvac, growled, "For centuries, we have ruled as the galaxy's only Deathworlders. Our enemies fear us, our allies obey us. But now these whispers spread. If another death world exists, our title means nothing." Another general snarled, "Then we erase it again. Send a fleet. Burn this earth. Let no one ever speak the name." A silence fell. Even among the ruthless Xorathians, there was hesitation. Some feared ghosts. Others feared the truth. Finally, Korvac slammed his fist against the table. "We will not be challenged by phantoms. We will find Earth, and we will prove once and for all that we alone are the masters of survival." The decision was made. When the order leaked, the galaxy trembled. In hidden corners, scholars whispered warnings. "Do not wake what was buried." Merchants spread rumors in shadowy bars. The Xorathians hunt a ghost world, and among old, forgotten species, those who still remembered ancient wars, a single phrase returned, the forgotten name. The fleet departed, massive warships black as obsidian cutting through the void. But Tehran, the archivist who had uncovered the name, was not silenced. He slipped aboard a supply ship, determined to see this world for himself. He needed to know why the galaxy feared Earth. Days turned into weeks as the fleet traveled through uncharted systems. Strange anomalies appeared, pulses of radiation, dead satellites drifting with no origin. Once a derelict ship crossed their path. Its hull was marked with symbols none could translate. And inside its blackened corridors, they found remains that were wrong, too strong, too human, the soldiers whispered among themselves. Some wanted to turn back. Others laughed nervously, claiming the dead could not return. But still, the unease grew. Finally, the fleet reached the coordinates. Before them hung a yellow star, bright and calm. Around it spun a blue planet wrapped in clouds. From orbit it seemed ordinary, no different from thousands of other worlds. But the scanners told a darker truth. Violent storms raged across the surface. Oceans churned with power greater than most planetary quakes. The temperature swung from burning heat to freezing cold in hours. And yet life thrived. Dense forests, endless seas, swarms of creatures battling endlessly for survival. One officer muttered, "This planet, it should not exist." Tehran, watching from the viewport, whispered the name. Earth. The word carried weight as if the planet itself heard him. The Xorathians prepared their report. "The world is harsh, yes, but no civilization can live here. It is impossible." And then the signal came, a faint transmission buried under static, repeating again and again, "We endure." The bridge went silent. The commander's scales rippled with unease. "What was that?" The officer checked his console, voice shaking. "Origin, surface of the planet." Every soldier froze. "We endure." The words were not broken, not corrupted, not from the past. They were alive. Someone or something was still down there. The commander snarled, trying to hide his fear. "Prepare dropships. If there are survivors, we will crush them." But deep in his chest, doubt clawed at him. If this was truly Earth, if the name had been buried for a reason, what awaited them below? As the dropships broke from the fleet and plunged into Earth's violent skies, Tehran held his breath. He could feel it in his bones. This was no myth, no error. The forgotten name had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Xorathian fleet hung in orbit above Earth, black silhouettes against the pale blue sphere. For centuries, they had called themselves the galaxy's only Deathworlders, the only true survivors of a hostile world. Yet here they were, staring down at a planet that felt alive, angry, and unbroken. But the galaxy was about to learn something far worse. Earth was not empty. The transmission still echoed through the fleet's comms. "We endure." It was a simple phrase, repeated again and again as if daring them to answer. The bridge was silent. Xorathian warriors, creatures who had stared down predators larger than tanks, sat frozen, staring at their consoles. Finally, General Korvac growled. "A trick. Nothing more. A ghost signal from long-dead machines." But his voice carried no certainty. Even he could feel the weight of the words. "We endure," Tehran, the archivist, whispered from the shadows of the command deck. "No machine repeats words with such defiance." "Something lives," the general turned on him with a snarl. "You should not even be here, scholar. You know nothing of war." "Perhaps," Tehran said softly, "but I know the weight of history. And history has just spoken to us." The order was given. Dropships roared away from the fleet, tearing through the storm-choked skies of Earth. Lightning forked around them. Rain slammed against their hulls like hammers. Below, mountains tore upward. Forests stretched like endless seas, and waves struck the coasts with fury. Every soldier inside the dropships felt it. The world itself seemed to challenge them, to whisper, "You do not belong here." The Xorathians prided themselves on surviving their own death world. But Earth felt different. This was not a world that simply killed the weak. This was a world that shaped its children into predators beyond imagination. The first dropship landed in what had once been a city. Towers of steel and glass stood broken, wrapped in vines. Roads cracked open, nature reclaiming every surface. But there was something strange. The ruins were not lifeless. Fires burned in metal drums. Tools lay scattered, freshly used. Footprints marked the mud. The commander narrowed his eyes. Someone has been here recently. Weapons were raised. Soldiers fanned out. They expected ambush, resistance, monsters. Instead, they found silence. But silence on a death world was often the loudest warning. Hours passed. Patrols searched the ruins, scanning every shadow. It was then that one soldier noticed something on a cracked wall, a mark, a symbol burned into stone. 2 lines crossed with a circle at the center. The officer frowned. "What is this?" Tehran leaned closer, eyes wide. "It is writing. Ancient human script. Can you read it?" The archivist hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, it says, 'We are still here.'" The words sent a chill through even the hardened Xorathian warriors. Suddenly, motion sensors screamed. Shapes moved through the ruins, fast, too fast. The soldiers spun, weapons ready, scanning every angle. But nothing appeared. Only shadows. Only silence. Then came the sound, a laugh. Low, bitter, echoing across the broken streets. The Xorathians froze. No alien laughed like that. No beast mocked its prey. "Show yourself." The commander roared. And from the smoke of a burned building, a figure stepped forward, the first human the Xorathians had ever seen. He was tall, scarred, his body wrapped in scavenged armor. His eyes glowed with a cold fire, a predator's calm mixed with something deeper, endurance. In one hand, he carried a rifle built from scrap and old parts, yet held with deadly confidence. The human looked at the Xorathians, unafraid. Then he smiled, not with kindness, but with the cruel smile of a survivor who had seen worse. "Deathworlders," the human said, his voice steady. "So you finally came." The Xorathians stood frozen. They had expected weak survivors, starving and broken. Instead, they faced something terrifyingly familiar, creatures shaped by suffering, hardened by violence. The human took a step closer, boots echoing against broken stone. "You thought you were alone," he said. "You thought no world could rival yours. But look around you. This is Earth. Every storm, every beast, every hunger has tried to kill us. And yet," he raised his weapon. His smile widened. "We endure." Before the Xorathians could respond, the shadows around them moved. More figures stepped out, men, women, armored survivors, each carrying weapons that looked crude but deadly. Their eyes burned with the same fire. The Xorathians suddenly understood. This was no dead world. This was no myth. Humanity had survived. Panic rippled through the Xorathian troops. Some raised weapons, others froze in shock. The commander snarled, trying to hold control. "Stand your ground." But deep inside, even he felt it, the crushing realization. The galaxy's oldest secret had just risen from the ashes. The humans didn't attack, not yet. They simply watched, silent hunters in the ruins of their own world. And in their silence was a promise. The galaxy had forgotten them. But now humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget again. The Xorathians had always believed they were unmatched. Their world, their storms, their predators, none could compare. For centuries, they carried the title of the galaxy's only true Deathworlders. But now, on the ruins of Earth, they stood face to face with something they had been told did not exist: humanity. And in the silence between them, the galaxy's greatest lie began to shatter. The first human stood in the shadows of a ruined tower, scarred and silent, his weapon built from scraps but held with confidence. Around him others emerged from broken streets and crumbling walls. Men, women, survivors, their armor mismatched, their eyes hard. The Xorathian commander, Korvac, felt his throat tighten. These were not fragile beings clinging to life. These were predators. The human smiled, cruel and sharp. "So, you finally came." The Xorathians raised their weapons, claws trembling on the triggers. For the first time in centuries, fear touched their hearts. Korvac roared to steady his soldiers. "You cannot frighten us, human. We are Deathworlders." The human tilted his head, studying them with the calm of a hunter who had already judged his prey. "Deathworlders." His voice was low, dangerous. "You don't even know the meaning of the word." Lightning split the sky above, thunder shaking the ruins. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. One of the human survivors, a woman with a scar running down her face, stepped forward. Her voice was steady. "You came here thinking we were ghosts, that we were broken, that we were gone." She lifted her weapon. But ghosts don't fight back. The Xorathians shifted uneasily. Their senses screamed with motion. Dozens, then hundreds of human life signs surrounding them in the ruins. The soldiers were trapped, ringed by survivors who had no fear of death. Korvac bared his fangs. "You dare challenge us? You think yourselves our equals?" The first human chuckled, the sound low and harsh. "Equals? No, we are worse, because we've fought battles you cannot imagine. Against storms, beasts, starvation. Against each other. Against the very planet that tried to kill us every single day." He took a slow step forward. The humans behind him moved like a tide. "And we're still here." The commander's pride battled his fear. He needed to act, to show strength, to prove the galaxy's order had not changed. He raised his weapon. "Fire!" The ruins erupted in light. Xorathian rifles screamed, blasting fire through the night. Stone shattered. Metal burned, echoes roared through the broken city, but when the smoke cleared, the humans were gone. Whispers filled the ruins. Shadows moved. A soldier screamed as a crude blade tore through his armor. Another fell as a pipe slammed into his skull. The Xorathians turned wildly, firing in all directions, but their enemy was everywhere and nowhere. The humans were not charging blindly. They hunted, silent, patient, precise. Korvac snarled, frustration burning in his chest. "Stand together. Do not break ranks." But already his warriors were falling, dragged into the dark. From the rubble, the human leader appeared again, calm and unhurt. His voice carried over the storm. "This is your first lesson. On Earth, we don't fight wars the way you do. We fight to survive. We fight dirty. We fight to win." Another Xorathian screamed. Another fell. The commander's pride began to crack. This was no myth, no ghost. This was humanity. The Xorathians finally managed to regroup, weapons blazing, driving back the shadows. The humans withdrew, slipping into the ruins as if they had melted into the earth itself. Korvac's chest heaved with rage and fear. His warriors looked shaken, their arrogance bleeding away. Tehran, the archivist, who had followed the fleet, whispered as he stared into the smoke. They were erased from history for a reason. Korvac turned on him. "Speak." The archivist's voice trembled. Because the galaxy feared them. As the storm raged above, the human signal echoed once more through the Xorathian comms. We endure. And this time, the words were not just a warning, they were a promise. The storm had not ended. Lightning carved jagged wounds across the sky, thunder rolling through the ruins of Earth like the growl of some ancient beast. And in the heart of that broken city, two predators faced each other. On one side, the Xorathians, armed with plasma rifles, armored in warforged steel, and trained as the galaxy's most feared warriors. On the other, humanity, scarred, starved, armed with scraps and steel, but standing like wolves who had never learned the meaning of fear. For centuries, both had carried the same title, Deathworlders. Tonight, the galaxy would learn which race deserved it. The Xorathian commander Korvac raised his clawed hand. His voice cut through the storm like a blade. Destroy them. Leave no trace. We are the true Deathworlders. His soldiers roared in answer, weapons glowing with deadly light. But then the humans answered, not with words, not with roars, but with silence. Hundreds of eyes glared from the shadows. Hundreds of weapons, crude but deadly, glimmered in the dark. And then, as one, the humans moved. The ground shook as they charged, their footsteps thundering against the broken stone. Pipes, blades, spears, and stolen rifles gleamed in their hands. The first clash was not a battle. It was an explosion. Xorathian rifles lit up the ruins, burning holes through walls and stone. Humans fell, but the charge did not break. For every one who fell, two more surged forward, screaming, leaping, tearing into the enemy with savage fury. Korvac slashed his way through the storm of bodies, his claws wet with blood. But for every human he cut down, three more closed in. They're endless. A Xorathian soldier cried, terror in his voice. No, Korvac growled as he struck another down. They're hungry. The human leader was everywhere. He moved through the chaos like smoke, striking, vanishing, striking again. His eyes never left Korvac. At last, their gazes locked across the battlefield. The human's lips curled into a smile that was not kind. Korvac roared and charged. Their collision shook the ground. Claws met steel. Strength met fury. Deathworlder met Deathworlder. The Xorathian commander struck like a storm, his claws ripping through the air. But the human blocked with scraps of steel welded into a shield, countering with brutal precision. Each blow carried the weight of a world that had tried to kill him since birth. You call yourself Deathworlders. The humans snarled as their weapons clashed. But you've never bled the way we have. You've never fought your own world every single day. Korvac bared his fangs. We conquered our world. The humans' eyes burned. We survived ours. The battle raged around them. Humans fought like predators, striking from shadows, dragging Xorathians into the ruins, breaking their lines. The Xorathians fought with fire and fury, their technology blasting holes through the city, their discipline holding them together. It was predator against predator, savage against savage, Deathworlder against Deathworlder. And still, the storm raged above, as if the planet itself watched. Tehran, the archivist, stumbled through the battlefield, clutching a recorder. His voice shook as he spoke, documenting what he knew would change history forever. They said there was only one Deathworld. They said Earth was erased because it was weak. But I see now. It was erased because the galaxy feared the truth. A human soldier fell nearby, only to rise again with blood covering his face, swinging his weapon until his enemy fell. Tehran whispered in awe. This is not a battle. This is survival itself made flesh. Back at the heart of the clash, Korvac and the human leader locked together, claw against blade. Their strength was equal, their fury endless, but then the human whispered, voice cold as the storm, "You want to know what it means to be Deathworlders?" He shoved Korvac back with a roar, lifting his weapon high. "It means the universe itself tried to erase us. And it failed." The humans roared as one, their cry shaking the ruins. For the first time, the Xorathians faltered. For the first time, doubt entered their hearts. And in that moment, the truth became clear. The galaxy had been wrong. There were not one. but two Deathworlder species, and humanity had just returned to claim its place. The battle did not end that night. Blood stained the ruins, screams filled the storm, and fire lit the broken world. But every Xorathian who survived carried the same memory back to their people, the memory of a predator they could not defeat, the memory of humanity. The storm passed, but silence never returned. The ruins of the city lay broken, its streets soaked with blood, its towers split and scarred from fire. The Xorathians had come believing Earth was a grave. Instead, they found it alive. Alive with predators the galaxy had erased from history. Now the survivors of both sides crawled from the wreckage, carrying more than wounds. They carried fear. For the first time in centuries, the Xorathians were no longer sure of their place as the galaxy's only Deathworlders. And that fear would spread faster than fire. The message traveled faster than ships, faster than light. Whispers in comm channels, fragments of recordings, screams picked up by abandoned relays. They're alive. The humans, they fought us. They shouldn't exist, but they do. By the time Korvac's crippled warship limped from orbit, the news had already reached the nearest colonies. And with every telling, the story grew darker. On the Xorathian ship, silence filled the command deck. Soldiers avoided each other's eyes, their pride buried under the weight of what they had seen. Korvac sat alone, his claws digging into the steel arm of his chair. His body still burned with wounds from the human leader, scars carved by hands that should never have existed. Tehran, the archivist, stood at his side. His recorder trembled in his hands. "They'll never believe us," Korvac growled. "The council will laugh. They'll call it weakness." Tehran's eyes were haunted. "No, they won't laugh. Not when they see this." He pressed the recorder, and the bridge filled with echoes, human voices roaring, weapons striking, survivors crying. The storm above and the battle below. The soldiers who heard it shivered. One whispered what they all thought: "They're worse than us." Far from Earth, in the shining halls of the Galactic Council, rumors became storms. Delegates argued, shouted, and fought to silence each other. Impossible. The humans were destroyed. Records confirm it. Then explain the reports. Fabrications. Xorathian excuses for failure. But others leaned forward, voices quiet but sharp. What if it's true? What if we erased them because they were too dangerous? The chamber grew tense. For the first time in centuries, the council felt something they thought had been banished forever. Doubt. Back on Earth, the humans had vanished into the ruins, leaving only wreckage behind. No one knew where they went, but their signal still whispered across the stars: "We endure." Every relay that caught it spread it further. Every ship that heard it carried it home. In time, even the species who had never seen Earth, who had only heard its name in passing, began to feel a shadow pressing at the edge of their thoughts. Fear Korvac stood before his surviving warriors. Their eyes were dull, their pride broken. He raised his claw and roared, forcing strength back into his voice. "We are Deathworlders. We cannot fall to fear." But as his words echoed, he saw the truth in their faces. They were warriors, yes. They were strong, yes, but they had seen something greater. Something darker, and in their hearts the shadow of humanity had already taken root. Tehran walked the halls of the ship, recording everything. His voice grew heavier with every word. "The galaxy is not ready." They believed the Xorathians were the apex, the final predator. But Earth has shown us a reflection we were never meant to see. If humanity rises again, no world will sleep without nightmares. He paused, staring into the stars beyond the viewport. "And yet, I cannot decide if we should fear them or follow them." The Xorathian fleet limped back toward their empire. But the story outran them. Smugglers whispered of human ambushes. Miners claimed they had seen human signals. Explorers swore they had found ruins marked with the words, "We endure the galaxy." For all its pride, could not stop imagining what might come next. And in the silence of space, where no one dared to speak too loudly, the question spread. If humans had survived, how many more were still out there? The shadows of fear reached every world, every council, every throne. And though the galaxy tried to hide it, the truth was clear. The age of one Deathworlder was over. The age of two had begun. The galaxy had always feared war, but not like this. For centuries, the Council believed the Xorathians were the final word in savagery, the only Deathworlders, the ultimate predators among the stars. But now, humanity had returned, not as ghosts, not as myths, but as hunters. And when two Deathworlds clashed, the galaxy itself shook. The first human fleet appeared without warning. No shipyards had built them, no records marked their launch. They emerged from the void like shadows given form, massive vessels cobbled together from wreckage, stolen tech, and forgotten machines. They should not have flown, but they did. They should not have survived the vacuum of war, but they did. And when the Xorathian Empire tried to erase them a second time, the humans struck first. In orbit above the colony world of Varos, alarms screamed. Unidentified fleet inbound. Composition unknown. Council observers rushed to their stations, eyes widening as the ships appeared. They're not Xorathian. The word caught in his throat, human. Moments later, fire filled the stars. The battle was nothing like the Council had ever seen. Xorathian ships moved with precision, their lines tight, their weapons blazing in brutal unison. They had fought wars for centuries. They knew the art of slaughter, but the humans fought differently. They didn't follow lines. They didn't follow rules. They struck like predators, diving, weaving, breaking formation, hitting where the enemy was weakest. They sacrificed ships to destroy bigger targets. They rammed, boarded, and tore their enemies apart with tactics no strategist would ever allow. To the Council, it looked like chaos. To the humans, it was survival, and survival was something they had mastered. Korvac stood on the bridge of his flagship, claws tight on the rail. His warriors fought with fury, but the humans gave no ground. Impossible, he growled. They don't have the numbers. They don't have the weapons. How are they winning? Terran's voice was quiet, heavy with dread, because they fight as if every battle is their last. And because, Commander, they already learned how to fight the impossible. On the human flagship, the leader who had faced Korvac on Earth stood before his crew. His scars gleamed under the dim lights, his voice steady as the storm outside. They thought they could bury us. They thought they could erase us. But we are still here. The crew roared in answer, and tonight the galaxy learns the truth. Humanity does not die. Humanity endures. The flagship surged forward, spearing through the Xorathian line. The War of Worlds had begun. Every colony felt the tremors. Every empire watched with dread. The Council, once proud and untouchable, now trembled. Debates turned into screams. Armies scrambled to prepare. No one knew which side to choose, or if choosing at all meant survival. One delegate whispered what none dared to say aloud. If the humans win, the galaxy will never be the same. The Battle of Varos raged for hours. Ships burned, planets shook, and the stars themselves seemed to bleed. Neither side would yield, but in the ashes of every destroyed vessel, in the screams of every soldier who fell, one truth echoed louder than the war itself. This was no longer a conflict between species. This was a fight for the meaning of survival, and only one. Deathworld would claim the galaxy. The galaxy had seen wars before. Fleets had burned, empires had fallen, and stars had been swallowed in the fire of ambition. But nothing compared to this. The clash between the Xorathians and the humans was not just a war. It was a reckoning. For centuries, the galaxy had lived under a lie, that only one species had earned the title of Deathworlders. But the truth had returned, roaring through fire and blood, and by the end there would be no doubt left. The council chamber was silent, not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear. Delegates stared at the holoscreen, at the live feed streaming from the burning skies above Varos. Ships torn apart, stars lit with fire, death without end, and in the center of that chaos, One human flagship carved its way through the Xorathian fleet like a predator through prey. The council speaker's voice trembled. They're not supposed to exist. The archivist Terran, who had lived the battles and seen the humans with his own eyes, spoke softly into the silence. They do. And they are everything we feared they would be. The war raged on, but the outcome was already written. The Xorathians fought with pride, but pride could not stand against desperation. The humans fought as if they had nothing left to lose, and in that kind of war, nothing could stop them. Every tactic the Xorathians used was answered with something brutal, something savage, something no strategist would ever dare attempt. Suicide rams, fireships, boarding actions with weapons made of scrap. The galaxy watched in horror as survival itself became a weapon. Korvac, once so certain of his people's supremacy, now fought only to survive. His flagship burned around him, alarms screaming, his crew dying. Across the battlefield, the human leader's voice carried on an open channel. Calm, cold, final. You thought yourselves alone at the top. You thought no world was harsher, no predator stronger. But you were wrong. Korvac bared his fangs, refusing to bow even in defeat. We are Deathworlders. The human's voice cut like a blade. So are we, and only one apex can remain. Moments later, Korvac's flagship was torn apart in fire. The war ended not with peace but with silence. The humans did not take worlds. They did not demand tribute. They did not speak to the council or sign treaties. They simply sent one signal across the stars, carried by every surviving relay, etched into every listening heart. We endure. The galaxy trembled on thousands of worlds. Children whispered the word human as if it were a curse. Armies trained harder, empires built more weapons, yet none could sleep without hearing that echo. The council gathered again, but their voices were hollow. They had ruled for centuries. Now they ruled only in fear, because a new predator had returned, a new apex had risen, and it was human. The archivist Terran's final recording spread in secret, carried like contraband, whispered like forbidden scripture. They erased Earth to protect themselves. They buried its name because they feared what it meant. But the truth cannot stay buried. Humanity is back, and the galaxy will never forget them again. He paused, his voice trembling as if he felt the weight of the universe itself. This is no longer the age of Xorath. This is the age of humanity, the age of the new apex. And in the shadows of forgotten ruins, on worlds both near and far, human survivors raised their eyes to the stars. They were not done, they were only beginning.